Hello, welcome to another teaching learning video. This one is about teaching and learning. Of course, teaching and learning are going on all throughout the day, whether you're aware of it or not. The orchestration of the particulars of what's being offered to you are always in play. There's always something occurring where the bits and pieces of your own understanding are being put into a place or into an orchestration so that you can recognize the nature of what's being offered as the idea of the teaching that you are looking at or receiving. And if you want to look at that as a kind of like you're leveling up all the time, you're integrating all the time, or awakening more and more might be a better way to put it, all the time. You're becoming more self-aware and gaining a greater sense of self-love all the time. It doesn't stop, never stops. Whilst you find yourself with one of these avatars, it never stops. So, how it occurs, or an occurrence, I shouldn't say how it occurs, but an occurrence of, in an occurrence of self-awareness, you recognize when you've learned a lesson. Okay, a lesson will repeat until it is learned, and you'll recognize that you've learned it because you're grateful to the person or situation that's been playing the part, offering you the lesson, and that's true gratitude. Because you realize your own benefit in it, and you recognize that there is only the will of God, and so regardless of whatever initial reactions or responses you had to the person or situation presenting what was always going to be a lesson, because there is only learning, that you've learned it, right? You recognize, oh, I've learned that lesson. Thanks for playing that part for me. In subsequent interactions with people, situations, and events, you may have that recognition of the lesson being presented that you've learned showing up again, right? But because you've learned it, you're able to now check yourself regarding your own interaction with the presentation to see where you are standing, whether you're actually applying the lesson or simply parroting it out as a defense, something like that. It's application that's required, right? So you don't learn the lessons for no reason. You learn them so that you can apply them in your own thinking, as well as in the residual karma or the residual effects of your own thinking that still show up for you in the dream. So you recognize all of a sudden you're talking with somebody, let's say, and you have a moment of like there's a little bing, that's a lesson that I've learned. I know that one about be here now, or I know that one about take responsibility, or I know, and you'll find that these things go on, and it just happens in the background of your mind all the time, and you'll be listening to somebody, and in a certain sense, you can get where they're at. Like, so if somebody comes to you for help, or comes to you and they're asking for healing or for a teaching, or they've got a problem going on or something, and you listen to their story for a moment, and you can hear where it is the lessons that you have learned can be applied to that story to help bring a difference to the outcome, to the effect of the story and the person's peace of mind, right? And in that, you both come out further along than when you went into the relationship, if in fact your guidance or your offering as teacher is received, right? As you teach, you learn, and what you are learning is that minds are joined. Not that you're a good Course in Miracles teacher or anything like that. That's pointless. That's nothing. You're learning that minds are joined. And so similarly, when you sit before a teacher, as I sat before my formal teacher for 6 years, Ted Poppy Jr., there were times when I knew what he was talking about because I had learned those particular lessons that were referencing in my mind through listening to him at the time, And there were also times when he would talk and the room would be full of people. He would be talking and I would grasp at something he was saying. I knew there was something there, but I didn't know what it was. And I recognized that there was more for me to learn. And I would listen intently, recognizing that I am being presented my answers through this teacher. I am being presented my ongoing transformative directions through this teacher. And sure enough, whether through TED or another, I would be presented again and again the opportunity to learn what it was that I could hear but could not quite identify. It was like it was almost as if it was just out of grasp, out of reach. And then those lessons would be integrated and I would be given the opportunity to teach them and so learn them as I teach them. But one of the stages that I went through, which I look back now at the very, very patient, dear ones who were there in that centre with me, how they put up with me for so long as I defended myself again and again and again with the concepts, thinking that I knew something, thinking that the concepts of the course, or thinking that the mastery of the concepts of the course was what it was that I was being asked to learn. And yes, I was being asked to learn a mastery of those concepts, but for a purpose beyond them entirely. And it was that purpose that drew me onward and onward and onward. And I remember when I started to see, when I started to recognize, however dimly in my own mind, that I was defending myself with concepts. I was using my same human thinking where I would defend myself against my reflections in a whole new or higher vibratory way to defend myself against my reflections using spiritual principles and spiritual concepts to do it. Instead of fists or instead of putting up a wall. I was putting up a wall of a different kind that I thought I was in control of or something. And it was only when I realized that that's what I was actually doing that I began to let my reflections in. I began to accept what was presented to me in all of the people and situations that would come and that still come today. And I realized that the triggers were, or that the defenses that I had wanted to put up before spiritually, thinking that that was what I was being called to do, was to make a spiritual stand for truth through the concepts, was actually keeping me from my learning. And as I let down my spiritual defenses, I began to get hurt. I began to feel pain. I began to fall into dark places. And there I met the Lord again and again and again. And I was shown the truth of my belief in separation, which I had long struggled with, swearing over and over, no, I don't believe in separation, no, using concepts to defend myself, to realize that there were still remnants of separation hidden away in the basement of my subconscious that I didn't want to look at. And for all of my great spiritual learning and mastery of the concepts, I'd only gone as far as I could allow myself to go in the undoing process, and that at some point the residue of my ego, having already experienced the enlightenment of my mind in 1997, the residue of my ego was still attempting to cling and manipulate and control the way I viewed the world and viewed things and responded and reacted to things, but was using my spiritual concepts to do that. And so I included everything in. I am a dickhead. I am a fuckwit. I am all of these things. I am what the world will call me. I'm not going to say that I'm not, because I am one with all things here as above, so below. And I realized that prior to that recognition moment, I had somehow convinced myself that I was just the good things, just the things that seem to resonate with the Course when Jesus tells me that I'm loving and lovable and all of these sorts of things. But I realized that I wasn't actually doing the work and digging down. And in the Course it says very beautifully, this is a journey into fear. Seek for the blocks and find them. And for me, the recognition that everything presented was an opportunity to recognize a block within myself through my reaction to it, seeing that I'd been triggered or that I was defending myself, especially with spiritual concepts, which became very liberating. It's like, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. And whatever's next, I don't know. But you can tell the opportunity because of the trigger. You can tell the opportunity because of the reaction. And quite simply, there's nothing to react to. Jesus says, why would you react at all to figures in a dream that you truly knew you were dreaming? And I'd had an experience where I recognized that I truly was dreaming. But the integration and the alignment with that through my own transformation, because I was a top-down baby, I guess, a top-down birth first. I'd had the experience first and then the mind training, was a little different and harder to grasp than those who seem to be starting at the bottom, let's say a bottom-up baby, and growing through transformation to then becoming revelation ready and reaching enlightenment and all that sort of thing. So I wanted to offer that perspective through this video because I have recognized it in myself. And once you've learned a lesson in yourself, you can see where others are at in their own learning lessons, and you just naturally want to be able to try to help them or offer them what it is that you've learned, and hope perhaps that they can integrate it for their own transformation, for their own experience, for their own availability of awareness of the light in them, so that you can join in a place beyond the concepts and recognize that mind is one. Like that. When I open my mind, like that, beyond the concepts, I'm beyond the Course. The Course has got me to the place where I can now open my mind without the necessity for hours long of meditation. Although that was the case in the beginning. So I hope this video has been helpful. From all of my witnessing and from everything I have learnt from others, the idea of defending oneself with spiritual concepts is a relevant one and is seemingly a stage that everybody goes through, and some quicker than others. I consider myself to be quite a dense learner, quite a slow learner, and I'm okay with that. I'm entitled to miracles. But having seen that lesson, it becomes obvious in dealings with others, where, and I can hear all the spiritual minds out there now saying, there are no others, as if that was actually true. Remember, you have to find yourself in the world. You have to be in the world and accept the world as it is, where you do believe in separation. Otherwise, how will you heal it in your mind? Concepts are nothing. Experience is everything. And you have to have a universal experience, which is not only possible but necessary. I love you. Peace.